Welcome, everyone, to the commencement for the class of 2023. Today isn't just a moment to mark the end of 3 years for many, 1 year and a little more years, depending who you are, of hard work and sacrifice. It is a celebration for all of you of a new beginning. This is the moment when you set forth on your career and take the next step in your professional life. And as we focus on where you go from here, it's worth talking a little bit about how you got here in the first place. So it does my heart good to see so many family members and friends who came from near and far to be with us today. So you might think that we're only celebrating the folks you see up front in the gowns and the tams, but today is a moment to celebrate every single person who smoothed the way so that these graduates could walk across this stage. That group includes the people who raised you, the people who have loved and encouraged you in your adulthood, the staff who helped you at every step, and the amazing faculty who taught you. So we're going to have many opportunities to celebrate our graduates today, but first and most importantly, I want to thank the families, friends, mentors, staffs, professors, and loved ones who made this day possible and encourage our graduates to pursue their wildest dreams, who affirmed their aspirations and quieted their fears. Without your support, without your love, without your strength, without your willingness to put up with the most argumentative people on the planet, today would not have been possible for our graduates. You have helped launch this extraordinary group on their path, and every student garnering their degree is forever in your debt, as is this law school. So I ask each and every member of the class of 2023 to stand and cheer the people who made this possible. And to the class of 2023, we are in awe of what you achieved. Graduating from Yale Law School is no mean feat in usual times, but you did it during some of the most challenging years in living memory. We are still absorbing the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic and what it has done to our lives. For many, your first year at the law school, you communicated largely through Zoom screens and raised eyebrows. Something akin to normalcy didn't really occur until this year. You navigated a period of extraordinary uncertainty with courage and determination. You managed concurrent overlapping crises alongside hours of professional work, and many of you even managed to do this with grace and kindness and generosity to those around you. I cannot promise that the world that awaits you is any more predictable. What I do know for sure is that your law degrees are well-earned, hard-fought, and markers of genuine achievement. Now, in the usual year, the dean gives our graduates advice on facing uncertain futures, wielding their degrees for good, keeping families close. And I have a sense you really don't need me to say any of those things to you. Some of you washed ashore at the law school when the couches in Baker Hall were shrink-wrapped in plastic and gathering in person was not even permitted. Early on, many of you had to learn and work with students whom you had barely seen, tackling your clinic and classwork in a new landscape of teaching and learning. Some of you even completed your first year of law school from your childhood bedrooms. Much of the last years have been marked by challenges, unease, and grief. To make it to this day required fortitude and grit. Your class affirmed our belief that Yale Law School is not simply a place, not simply four walls and a courtyard on Wall Street. It is a commitment that we make to one another and to our ideals. We all had to reimagine the very idea of what it meant to be Yale Law School, and together we doubled down on our commitments to ideas, to justice, and to community. Even during this difficult period, we all managed to move forward. You all breathed new life into dormant student organizations. You forged lifelong friendships with classmates in different time zones. You generously swapped reading notes and exam outlines. You traded glimmers of hope and inspiration on subreddit threads. A decade from now, when you look back on your law school experience, you will reach back and think of before times and rejoice at finally having arrived at the after. But I hope that you will remember the magic that you made of the in-between. Now in 2020, I started my convocation speech with some fun facts about the JD class. You all joined a class that includes Eagle Scouts, a paratrooper, a pro soccer player, a helicopter pilot, a Sudoku writer, and a firefighter. After 3 years, you and your fellow LLMs, JSDs, and PhDs have done even more. You've published articles and notes, even a novel or two. You've drafted briefs, held press conferences, passed policy. You've revived the law review and prom and ensured the permanence of caffeinated Mondays. And I'm especially happy to say that some of the students who came the farthest to get here, the very first class of Hurst Horizon scholars, will cross the stage today, marking the commitments and values of this law school forevermore. So looking out at this crowd, I am reminded of the many incredible things that you've accomplished in New Haven. I am excited to see what lies ahead. And I want you once again to please join me in celebrating the remarkable class of 2023. So the great privilege of deaning during commencement is that you get to introduce remarkable speakers. And it is my privilege to introduce you first to the faculty speaker who was elected by this class, Professor Ann Alstott, Visiting Professor in Taxation. For those many family members and friends who think that law graduates are allergic to numbers, you might find it surprising that our graduates have elected a tax professor to be their faculty speaker. The code is a little bit of a labyrinth with intersecting, redundant, and sometimes conflicting bits of guidance. Taxes are generally no picnic. But I'm gonna let you all in on a secret. Ann does not just teach tax. Now, I'm not saying that because of Ann's wide-ranging professional interests, although she is remarkably broad-gauged as a scholar. She teaches at the Yale Child Studies Center and is a faculty affiliate at the Yale Institution for Social and Policy Studies. A casual observer might think that these disparate strands of her work are not meant to overlap, but Ann's work weaves these strands into a tapestry showing her students and colleagues how two internal certainties, death and taxes, actually give us life. With her, the tax code is not just a collection of loopholes held together by a string, but an instrument that can be employed for justice and the good for all. Ann has devoted her career to making clear that the tax code is as worthy of study as the Constitution. Now, when I say that Ann does not just teach tax, I say it because naming her subject area or her scholarly interest cannot possibly capture the extraordinary teacher, mentor, and human being who is about to speak to all of you. Some legal academics see themselves as bringing the word of law to their students from on high, but Ann brooks no such remove. From the first day of class, she makes clear that her students do not have to earn her respect because they've already got it. Think about how powerful that is. It is something only a powerful and confident person can do, but it also demonstrates the profound humanity and care that Ann brings to everything that she does. I wish the law school could take credit for her fierce intellect and her famed generosity, but even her small group professor, who is sitting here on the dais behind me, reports that she's been who she was from the very beginning. But despite her natural talents, her students say that Professor Alstott taught them that success is not natural. They say that she taught them that succeeding is a skill that can be learned and is within reach for anyone willing to roll up their sleeves. With this, she invites her students to work alongside her as colleagues and partner. And as someone who also works alongside Anne, who is also in awe of Anne, I can't tell you how lucky we are to have her and how delighted I am to introduce your faculty speaker, Professor Anne Alstott.
Well, I'll never live up to that. I am so honored to be here with you and everybody who's here with you. We may not show it because we're socially awkward, but our hearts are full. We have watched you learn and grow and change, and we have had the privilege of being your teachers. You are already accomplished, committed, and successful and impressive lawyers, and we cannot wait, all of us, we cannot wait to see what you will become. Today, I'm no longer speaking to you as your teacher, right? I'm your peer. I'm your fellow alumna of the Yale Law School, and most of all, I'm your colleague in the law. As you leave us and go forth into the world, I hope that you will remember where you're from. And I mean that in two senses. I'm a law professor, so I gotta have at least two senses of even a simple phrase. First and most directly, I want to echo the dean in saying, please remember all the people that helped you get here today. As much as today is justly a day to praise your success, it's also a day to remember none of us get here by ourselves. For every single person sitting in these rows, there was somebody, and probably more than one somebody, who gave you a second chance when you might have failed. There was somebody who helped you envision what success might look like. There was somebody who saw something in you and took time out of their life and their commitments to help you become better. There were somebody, and probably lots of somebodies, who made sacrifices of money, of time, of their own opportunities to get you here. As you think about how you got here, how you succeeded, take the time to remember the people who aren't here and the people who did not achieve what they would have liked to achieve and were capable of achieving. Think about your parents or your grandparents, perhaps, who did not have the resources or the support to go to college. Think about your peers. Maybe they didn't find that peer, that mentor, that partner, that friend that got you through. As much as we celebrate your very real hard work and your well-earned success, we should all be mindful of the many life events that can derail even the best laid plans, even the most accomplished and hardworking people, from financial need to addiction to the care needs of parents and partners. So for them, for the people who are here and the people who can't be here, more applause. Remember where you're from and take strength from the communities and the people that got you here. Remember, too, to use this position that you have earned to represent the people whose lives play out differently. That brings me to my second sense of remembering where you're from. Today, as you graduate, the Yale Law School goes into the rearview mirror, and it becomes part of where you're from. And that could be a good thing or a bad thing. Maybe you reacted with unlimited joy and inspiration to everything that we said. Just perhaps you reacted against us as well, and that's fine too. I do hope that we have given you, or really I should say deepened in you, because this is something you came to us with, the sense that the law should serve the cause of justice. You've all forged different paths through this law school. Some of you have worked with Amy Kapczynski and Allie Miller to advance global health justice. Some of you have investigated with Monica Bell the effects of legal estrangement on communities of color. Some of you have helped Doug Nijame secure parental rights to all parents, regardless of their gender, sexual orientation, and marital status. I could go on, but I'm going to go on for a couple more. Some of you have worked with James Forman to work toward racial justice, including opening new doors to law school for law students. Some of you have worked with Mike Wishney to represent veterans. And some of you have also published scholarship that deepens and advances our sense of the law. Whatever your particular path, I do hope that we've managed to teach you one thing, and that is that the law is not static. It is not a set of neutral rules to be looked up in a book. The law is dynamic, it is created and changed by human beings, and it can serve either to advance justice or impede it. How do we know whether the law is advancing justice or impeding it? There are, as, again, I hope we taught you, many visions of justice. Let me offer one. In 1999, the philosopher Elizabeth Anderson argued that the proper aim of egalitarian justice is to end oppression, which, she says, by definition is socially imposed. The proper aim is to create a community in which people stand in relations of equality to others. Those are powerful words, and they offer a strong aspiration for the law. We should never forget that the law wields the power of the state against individuals and against communities, so that we as lawyers should work to ensure that that power is used to fight oppression and ensure that people stand in relations of equality to one another. Today, some legal authorities are using their power to oppress rather than protect. They are deploying the law to mark out some people and some groups as outside the community of equals. Sadly, we can think of many examples. You might think of the denial of women's agency in securing reproductive health care. You might think of the continued exclusion and maltreatment of human beings at the border. You might think of the legal denial of voting rights to people of color. In my current work, I confront one especially cruel example: the unprecedented use of the power of the law to persecute LGBTQ people in the United States. State lawmakers, particularly this year, but in growing numbers, have used, and I will say abused, their power to demean queer people and to deny them self-determination and to mark them as excluded, as other, as less than. As of today, and I wish I didn't have to say this, this is a statistic that needs daily updating. 20 US states have banned or sharply restricted access to standard, science-based medical care for transgender youth and adults. More than 100,000 trans youth now cannot obtain medical care that is approved by every relevant medical association in their home state. And healthcare is not the only target. Some states have made it illegal and dangerous for gender non-conforming people to use the bathroom. Some states have passed don't say gay or trans laws. that suppress speech by teachers who might otherwise support LGBTQ youth. Some states have even threatened to remove transgender youth from their parents solely because the parents consented to medical care for their children. These laws inflict grave damage and harm people not only in the states where they are literally enforced, but across the country and the world. Even before the 2023 onslaught of new legislation, transgender people were 4 times as likely as cisgender people to be targets of extreme violence. Black transgender people are even more likely to be targets of violence. We know, because it's been studied, that legal measures that target the LGBTQ community in one state burden the mental health of youth and adults and increase violence against them throughout the nation. Now, these developments are not something that we can or should dismiss as just the culture wars. We're all sick of the culture wars, I totally get that, but we have now moved well beyond trading insults on social media. Legal actors, including legislators, governors, and attorneys general, have enacted these laws and have based their decisions on frank scientific disinformation rather than sound, evidence-based medicine. And finally, before I segue into my conclusion, I want to say one thing. Although this is a day of unity and celebration of our Yale Law School community, we cannot and should not turn a blind eye to the role that members of our own YLS alumni community alumni community play in perpetuating these injustices. Our graduates and the graduates of other law schools wield enormous power in the legislatures, in the governor's mansions, and on the bench. When they misuse their power to defy the dictates of justice, we should challenge them and hold them to account. So remember where you are from. As graduates of this law school, you have new tools and resources available to you. You are uniquely suited to change the law and to advance the cause of justice. Your Yale Law degree isn't just a status marker, a line on your resume. It grants you the privilege to understand the law and how it is shaped, and it grants you the privilege to help shape the law at the highest levels. Remember where you're from. The people who love you, the people who recognized you, the people who gave you a second chance also gave you a sense of justice. Use your power, use your privilege to fight oppression and create a community in which everyone stands in a relation of equality to others. Remember where you're from.
So this is a place of traditions and also has a restless gene. So almost every year we change something about commencement. For example, the Fife and Drum Corps was one of our beloved staff members' additions to it. And one of those changes has been to bring in a speaker from the outside as well as from the inside of this school as we look inward and then look outward to your future. And I am incredibly honored to introduce this year's guest speaker, someone who once walked across the stage to obtain her degree, Reshma Sajani. It is fitting to have you here and share some parting advice with all of us today. Widely celebrated as a trailblazer, Reshma is a leading activist, movement builder, and social entrepreneur. She's been recognized as being among Fortune's World's Greatest Leaders, Fast Company's 100 Most Creative People, and Forbes' Most Powerful Women Changing the World. She is one of our lawyers writ large who has used this degree to go beyond traditional law practice and go out and change the world. As founder of a national nonprofit organizations, two of them, Girls Who Code and Moms First, and just on the Moms First front, I just want to say Reshma's family is back here, so let's give them all a huge round of applause. Reshma has made it her personal mission to ensure that future generations inherit a more equitable world. Both of her nonprofits aim to tackle the economic conditions that hold women and girls back and to bring valuable contributions of underrepresented gender minorities to the fore. She spent the better part of the last decade nursing the potential of women and girls who've either been turned away or turned off from pursuing their goals because of societal expectations about where exactly they belong. With an international reach and more than a decade of computer science education programming under its belt, Girls Who Code has provided support to nearly 500,000 girls worldwide and generated 14 billion global engagements through its marketing and advocacy campaigns. Today, the organization serves people of color and women in the US, UK, Canada, and India. Program alumni have gone on to major in computer science and related fields nearly 15 times the national average. And as an outgrowth of Girls Who Code, Moms First is a campaign that seeks to invest in mothers as we recover from the economic fallout of the pandemic. It is an important effort to address the ongoing devaluation of women's labor and to provide a social safety net where none exists. After earning degrees from the University of Illinois, Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, and this law school, Reshma spent several years working as an attorney in New York City. In her capacity as deputy public advocate, she created new partnerships to advance reforms in campaign finance and to provide support for Dreamers. In 2010, she actually tried her hand in politics and became the first Indian American woman to run for the US Congress as a candidate for the House of Representatives. It was during Reshma's congressional campaign that she witnessed the profound lack of infrastructural support for girls in computer science firsthand, and she was inspired to found Girls Who Code because of this experience. Reshma is often credited with championing initiatives that seek to close the gender gap. She set ambitious goals for putting women and girls on equal footing with their male peers. More recently, however, she sought out an increasing number of ways to close what she calls the bravery gap. Her best-selling project, Brave, Not Perfect, helped explain why young women and girls are made to believe that they may only attempt to do something that they won't fail at. But Reshma would be the first to tell you, making a friend a failure is a surefire way to succeed. She envisions a society where women, especially women of color, are encouraged to fail safely and live authentically. And she continues to push for crucial changes in our home lives, our workplaces, our culture, and public policies, changes that we all hope will transform the world as we know it. I'm delighted to introduce a leading light in the fight for inclusivity and representation without compromise, a woman whose bravery knows no bounds. Please join me in welcoming Reshma Saujani.
Thank you, Dean Gerken, for that kind introduction. And thank you, Anne, for your brave words. Just in case, Ron DeSantis, you're watching this live stream, we were talking about you. And thank you, esteemed faculty and honored guests, for having me here today. I will admit, when Dean Gerken called to give me this honor, I said no. I had already agreed to one commencement speech that was less than 24 hours ago, and because of her persistence, her just incredible spirit, and the fact that history will reward her as one of the best deans we've ever had at Yale Law School, I said yes. On that note, I want to thank my family, my husband Nahal, my sons Sean and Sai and Farah, who makes my life happen. They have basically been my roadies on this commencement tour we've been on for the past 48 hours, making sure that I'm hydrated and not hangry. So I promised them 2 shots of milk, Legos, and a Lakers win. So LeBron, you too, if you're listening, I need you. I want to also thank the parents and siblings, the aunties and uncles, your loved ones who have been there so you can be here. And now, at the end of a long, hard Yale Law School journey, who better to send you off than me, an alumni who partied her way through her time here, got fired from her first law firm job, and hasn't practiced since. Bringing me back was, as the kids say, a choice. But I hope you'll agree it's not a bad one. It is true that a degree from the best law school in the country opens up more doors than you can imagine. And today, I want to talk about what doors are actually worth walking through. Still, because I'm in a room full of future Supreme Court justices, Supreme Court clerks, I'd like this speech to take the form of a judicial opinion. The question at issue: what should you all do with your diplomas? And while I've never handed down an opinion before, we have plenty of admissible evidence that experience does not correlate with wisdom. I'm looking at you, Samuel Alito. So today, for those of you who relied more on a Quimby than you did on your casebook, I am going to summarize your holding for you. You should, in one way or another, make a career of care. Let's start by taking a moment to define our terms. First, what is care? Care has held many meanings in my life. In my teens and 20s, my care was directed at my future or some idealized form of it. I cared about getting perfect grades so I can get into the perfect college. I cared about being a perfect student so I could get into the perfect grad school. And I desperately cared about getting into Yale Law School. I applied here not once, not twice, but 3 separate times. And I only got close when I pleaded my case to Dean Cronman's assistant in person at a funeral. Yeah, the phrase "no chill" does not even begin to describe 23-year-old me. But for some reason, the assistant let me speak to the dean, who offered me a deal. He said, get into the top 10% of any law school in the country, and I'll let you transfer to Yale. So I grinded, and I got to the top of my class at Georgetown Law. Only after all of that did Yale finally let me in. By the time I got to New Haven, it was my 4th campus in 7 years. I was exhausted, self-conscious, and alone. So I did one of the best things I've ever done for myself. I stopped caring. And when I stopped giving that kind of care, I learned a whole new definition of the term. I bonded with a group of 10 inseparable girlfriends, some of whom were the only women of color at Yale Law School. We skipped class and watched Sex and the City. Instead of studying procedure, we proceeded to party. We basically made self-care cool 20 years before TikTok. And for the first time in my life, my care wasn't about success, but it was about the people I loved, including myself. And yet, unsurprisingly, this kind of care started to make me feel guilty. Caring about my friends, myself, it just didn't feel as ambitious as caring about my future. I thought about my parents, refugees, who had come here to give us a good life. And here I was, surrounded by some of the best peers, the best academics, the best professors. And instead of utilizing them, I was binge watching Sopranos and lip syncing a J-Lo. Now that may sound like an ideal night, but at that time I was racked with guilt. What was I doing with my life? And then, while I was prepping for the bar, I got my answer when I was reminded of the duty of care. Now, I'm sure all of you remember the definition of the duty of care, word by word, but since you're studying for your bar, I'm going to give you a refresh. When a person takes any action, they owe a duty of care, the attention, caution, and prudence that a situation demands from a reasonable person to anyone who might be impacted. Basically, it tells us to consider how our choices affect others, not because we want to, not because it makes us feel good, but because it's the law. I remember looking down at my flashcards totally amazed. So my desire to care for those around me is not any less legitimate, any less ambitious, or frankly, any less daunting than my desire for a clerkship or a corner office. Caring for others was not in opposition to my law school education. In fact, it was a foundational part of it. And maybe, just maybe, I could make it my life's work. Spoiler alert, that dreamy postgraduate Reshma was brought down once again by pressure from her peers who were all headed to those corner offices and those clerkships, and pressure from herself to be perfect. So I followed suit and bought a suit and got that corporate job. Old habits die hard, man. It took burning out again, and as previously mentioned, getting fired from my job, that made me realize I gotta reevaluate my goals. By then, I knew I didn't only want to care about my career, I wanted to make care my career. And as I got older, I learned a lot about care and how broken it is in our country. In the American legal system, a duty of care arises out of every meaningful relationship we have with one another. But in the American social system, it's every person for themselves. Today, America remains the only industrialized nation where paid leave is a job perk, not a human right. Where 1 in 5 adults are unpaid caregivers, 75% of whom are women, and the vast majority of those are Black women. It's a convoluted crisis. As a society, we all rely on care, but we don't value it. And the legal world is hardly immune from this phenomenon. In fact, it is especially guilty. For years, we've seen just as many women graduate law school as men. An increasing amount are first generation and women of color. And yet, in a 2020 study, it found that nearly 1/3 of female lawyers will leave the profession entirely in a decade or two. Why? Well, gaps in pay and opportunity don't help. But a big reason is culture. Too often, the reward for hard work is harder work. And all of these escalating demands, they don't result in satisfaction, but in sacrifice. And to be sure, it's not just women making sacrifice, but in a country where women do twice as much unpaid labor as men, $1.5 trillion worth, women simply aren't making the same sacrifices. Men are giving up time with their families, and women are giving up time at work. And as a result, no one's happy. So if a woman chooses to temporarily leave the law to care for her kids, her parents, or herself, she'll find a hard time finding her way back up the legal ladder without facing the same structural obstacles that forced her to leave in the first place. And all that was true before SCOTUS overturned Roe v. Wade. As courts continue to roll back our right to a safe and legal abortion, it's going to be even harder for women to hold on to their careers, let alone move up in them. To put it bluntly, the law profession and the country writ large don't care much about who needs care or those who provide it. Again and again, we're told you're on your own. But guess what? It doesn't have to be that way. I founded Moms First to transform our workplaces, our government, our culture, and yes, our institutions of higher education to better value and empower caregivers. And I'll be honest, when I took that leap to start Moms First, I didn't think, wow, this is a direct byproduct of my Yale Law School degree. But looking back now, I definitely see how this place got me to where I am today. Yale Law is where I learned to care for myself and my family. It's where I learned that care is a legitimate, lifelong practice. It's where I learned that all lawyers, by definition, are caregivers. And what I mean by that is that lawyers, at our best, our most idealized form, focus our time, our energy, our God-given talent, and our Yale-given wisdom on the needs of others. And so no matter what we specialize in, all of us are taught nearly from day one about the duty of care that arises from the bonds we share. With this degree, you have the chance to prove that the highest embodiment of justice is care, especially for the most vulnerable among us. And you have the opportunity to reorientate the entire legal profession, to put the burden, no, the privilege of care on everyone, so we can care for anyone. So that your job enables you to care for your clients, your communities, yourselves. So that if you take off time to care for somebody you love, your career remains on track. So that whether you go into academia, the judiciary, the private practice, outside the legal field entirely, care will be the ultimate measure of success. It's a world where care is not an afterthought or a sacrifice. Rather, it's the very core of who we are as lawyers, who we are as people. You all hold the power to create this world. But more than that, you have the responsibility to create it. Because in this class, there's no question of whether you're going to change the law. The question, and make the world a better place, the question is how. So if every lawyer is a caregiver, and our actions demand a duty of care, then you should use your degree to care for everyone you can. That's my ruling, and yes, it's binding. That doesn't mean you should all become martyrs or even public interest lawyers. I hope that a lot of you follow my footsteps and don't practice law at all. No, I mean that you should focus less on your vocation and more on your values. Or better yet, make your values your vocation. Because when you get this prestigious little piece of paper, something happens. People all of a sudden start to care what you think, inside and outside of the field. I've experienced that Yale Law magic firsthand. This degree got my foot in the door of in the rooms of where decisions are made, the halls where change makers walk, the courts where the word becomes law. And I've tried with all my might to keep that door open for everyone. So instead of shying away from that power, that recognition, celebrate it. You've more than earned it. And then point it towards the people who need it the most. To make it easier to give care to everyone and anyone who needs it. To raise up the next generation of caregivers in your workplaces, in your homes, in your communities, so that our society will be a little safer, a little smaller, a little softer. If you do, your care will change someone's world, and it will change the world. Yale Law School class of 2023, congratulations. Thank you, and take care.
Thank you so much, Reshma, for that wonderful speech. And now we are going to present the candidates for degrees. And so first, Assistant Dean Gordon Silverstein.
Dean Gerken, members of the faculty, distinguished guests, friends and family, let us commence. It is my distinct privilege and high honor to present to you the candidates for and recipients of advanced degrees in law. For the degree of Doctor of the Science of Law, Guillermo Jose Arribas Herreozola. Jimena Benavides. Carlos de la Rosa Xochitl. Alvin Padilla Babylonia. David Sanjan Rajasingham. Roma Zinagrad. For the degree of Master of Laws, Samuel Hernan Beduzo Medina. Anuj Chand. Tomas Churaba. Nir Gonen. Nirbanu Ayaj. Dan Rafael Israel Preminger. Anmol Jane. Guilherme Socal. Kirthana Singh Khurana. Ga Hong Lee. Chile. Jose Maria Marella. Yara Mordechai. Elizabeth Parr. Suzanne Caroline Paz. David Benjamin Pressline. Philip Schluter. Luciano Simonetti Izquierdo. Pauline Isabel Sylvie Troila. Luna van Brussel Barroso. Arno van Ganegem. Flynn Worth Wells. And for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and Law, Sari Mazurko and her children. Thank you and congratulations.
And now for our candidates who are earning a JD, Jennifer Cerny, Associate Dean of Students.
Gherkin, members of the faculty, distinguished guests, friends, and family, it is with the most utmost pleasure and such an honor to present to you the 2023 candidates for the Juris Doctor degree in law from Yale Law School. For those following along in the program, you'll note that our first graduate is not in alphabetical order, as he is also a candidate for a degree from the Yale School of Management and needs to make it across campus in time to walk a second time across the stage. Please join me in congratulating Cy Ray. And now on to the rest of this remarkable class. Matei Alexano. James Altschul. Gregory Antle. Joshua Asabor. Van Auger. Prashanta Augustine. Daniel Backman. Ryan Bamier. Nicholas Barilli. Isabel Bernard. Brandon Baum. Julian Bava. Abigail Bazin. Jamie Beaton. Kyle Vegas. Saritha Benesh. Inkatea Berko. Kyra Blas. Russell Bogue. John Bowers. Colette Brennan. Andrew Breckel. Kyle Bright. Teddy Brokow. Salm Brown. Callie Bruzzoni. Colin Burke. Jimmy Byrne. Adam Callister. Olivia Campbell. Yael Kaplan. Robert Capo de Lupo. Eleanor Case Pethica. Alyssa Chan. Alan Chen. Kevin Chen. Mujin Choi. Sophina Clark. Elizabeth Clark. Trent Colbert. Justin Cole. Seth Cole. Clifford Covassier. Nathan Cummings. Braden Curry. Ishan Dabik. Ruben Danber Biggs. Poonam Dariani. Ram Dalam. Ellie Driscoll. Amelia Donnell. Marina Edwards and her child. Eric Eisner. Claire Elizondo. Simon Engler. Elle Eshelman. Ethan Fairbanks. Raymond Fang. Mark Fermani. Andrew Follett. Isabella Ferrero. Ali Freierman. Michelle Frailing. Jaster Francis. Chloe Francis. Kaylin Gaines. Kai Galindo. Adam Gerard. Isabella Janani. Brent Godfrey. Scott Graber. Brett Green. Samrath Gupta. Michaela Harris. Jelani Hayes. Adam Henderson. Erica Henry. Joshua Herman. David Herman. Callie Higgins. Daniel Hirsch. David Hopen. Susanna Howe. Jessica Hoang. AJ Hudson. Milo Hudson. Claire Hungar. Jeremy Hunt and child. Henry Ishitani. Gabrielle Jackson. Liz Jacob. Sonia Jacobs. Sarah June. Charles Jetty. Broderick Johnson. Alexis Kalin. Leah Kazar. Aaron Kelly. Reka Kennedy. Aisha Cowan Lang. Natalie Kirchhoff. Elon Kogan. Zach Chrysler. Eli Kakaruk. Gavin Landgraf and Child. Catherine Lee. Aaron Bryce Lee. Josh Lefkow. Abby Lemert. Leah Levenger and her child. Nina Leviton. Faith Lewis. Zoe Lee. Lauren Lynn. Anna Lippin. Michael Lodell. Cynthia Long. Alice Longenbach. Elsa Laura. Juan Luna Leon. Lila Malamut. Bo Malin Mayer. Ben Marcus. Caroline Markowitz. Hunter Mason. Jake Mazetis. Patrick McCormick. Daniel Mejia Cruz. Paul Mioski. Joel Michaels. Evan Miller. Andrew Miner. Juan Miramontes Mota. Caleb Mount. Derek Mubiru. Sarah Nathan. Sarah Nealon. Porter Neenan. Mira Netsky. Natalie Noguera. Lily Novak. John Agri Odera. Catalina Odeo. Gilbert Urbea. Grace Orthonius. Belissa Pang. Kayland Parrish. Caroline Parker. Varshina Partha Sarathi. Nicholas Polita. Daphne Peng. Emma Perez. Amir Perk. Miriam Pearson. Beatrice Pollard. Nicholas Pugliasi. Jessica Quinter. Mac Ramsden. Mila Reed Guevara. Stephanie Rice. Ezra Richin. Thomas Ritz. Fernando Rojas. Katie Roop. Jed Rothstein. Talia Rothstein. Eleanor Rundy. Upasna Saha. Leah Samuel. James Sanchez. Ann Sarnak. Alicia Schleifman. Zachary Schlesinger. Stefan Seitz. Partha Sharma. Akshat Shekhar. Zach Shelley. Valerie Silva. Melina Simard Holm. Andrew Smith. Natalie Smith. Aaron Sobel. Sailor Sawinski. Saja Spearman Weaver. Eric Stephen. Isabella Soparker and her children. Aubrey Stoddard. Samantha Stroman. Sierra Stubbs. Karen Sung. Rachel Talamo. Molly Teague. Ariel Tellis. Jonathan Terry. Chelsea Tomir. Jacob Tameri. Chris Umansor. Nathaniel Urban. Alejandro Uria. Angela Uribe. Saruthi Venkatachalam. Hannah Vester. Sarah Walker. Richard Wang. Shuni Wang. William Weber. Alyssa White. Marina Wilbram. Catherine Shu. Alan Shu. Angela Lulu Zhang. Alex Zhang. Heather Zimmerman. This concludes the Juris Doctor candidates. Please join me for one more round of applause for the Yale Law School class of 2023.
So the schedule says we have one more thing to do, but we actually have two. So first, as we enter the final part of our ceremony, and you're beginning to transition towards your own graduation, I want to introduce you to the next community that will, I hope, embrace you as much as we have. As you leave this law school, we hope you'll keep its spirit with you, whatever you do. And the place that helps you continue that community afterwards is called, improbably, the Executive Committee, which sounds like a terrible name for a wonderful institution. But to say a little bit more about what it means to be an alum of the school, I am delighted to welcome Leslie Gomez, the current president of the Executive Committee, a member of the class of 1995. And I particularly am glad that she's here as our first Hurst Horizons walk across the stage, because Leslie is a first-gener and one of the few Latinx women in her class. Alongside all of our alumni volunteers, she's deeply committed to helping the next generation of Yale students thrive. And we are grateful that she could be here today to give you a very brief welcome to the alumni community. And with that, I call up Leslie.
Wow, the energy in this room is just palpable. I stand here not knowing if I should align myself with you as a fellow alum and a student, or with your parents, because I'm old enough to be most of your parents in this room. As Dean Gerken said, my name is Leslie Gomez. I'm a proud member of the class of 1995. Please let me be the first to welcome you to the Yale Law School Association. You've now joined a small but vibrant community of Yale School alumni who welcome your engagement, your passion, and your ideas. As you transition from student to graduate, your fellow classmates across the decades stand ready to support and assist you. While each of our journeys and lived experiences are different, we all stood where you stand today, Yale Law School degree in hand, eager and excited to bring your individual gifts and ideals to the world. Your smiles and your pride today are intoxicating, and I hope that you hold on to those emotions as you move into the next steps. As you embark on the next step of your professional journey, I hope that you remember that the opportunities for learning are lifelong. I encourage you to hold true to your principles, but be open to changing your perceptions, to act with integrity, but not with judgment, to ensure that your IQ is evenly matched by your EQ, to temper confidence with vulnerability, and to be a fierce advocate, but to always remain kind, humble, and authentic in all that you do. And please, don't forget to come home, to attend reunion events, to mentor the students that come after you, to stay in touch with and honor those faculty who helped shape your legal education, and to connect with your fellow alumni for career advice, life advice, and friendship. The Yale Law School Association provides the framework and opportunity to create and sustain important connections within the law school community. And under Dean Gerken, the law school and its alumni association are committed to principles of diversity, equity, inclusivity, and to celebrating all of our alumni for their many sacrifices and accomplishments. You have changed the complexion of the law school, and I know that you will change the complexion of the law. The love and affection you have for one another is palpable, powerful, and inspiring. Hold on to that connection and care you have for one another. You are the Yale Law School Association. Your participation is critical to building community and connections, and I hope that you will each find a sense of belonging and community in the Yale Law School Association. Under your chair, you'll each find a gift from the Yale Law School Association, and congratulations again to the class of 2023.
And now we have one last unannounced treat, because by tradition, the honorands who receive the university's highest award, an honorary degree, are kept secret by almost everyone until now. But I don't need to introduce this person because you know him. You saw him receive this degree this morning, but as a courtesy, I want to do it. I'm delighted to say that our last speaker and the person who really ought to have the last word, Judge Guido Calabresi, is in the house. It is almost impossible to capture what Guido means to this community. He is its intellectual heart and emotional soul. It's hard to capture the essence of a man who made this place what it is, an institution fiercely devoted to ideas and a warm and loving community. All I can say is that he did so by fully embodying those values himself and insisting that everyone around him do the same. Despite his towering reputation on the federal bench and in the academy, he has remained an extraordinarily kind and humble human being. And perhaps you can sum up his humility by relaying to you all that he insists on being called Guido, just Guido. But I do take notice that of the fact that he is actually someone who has a one-name acronym for all alongside Madonna, Beyonce, Cher. A prolific and tremendously influential scholar, Guido has authored 7 books and over 100 articles. He's one of the founding parents of the field of law and economics, but he is one who insists that it have a human face. Guido has appeared and inspired more conferences than one could count. He has earned 4 degrees from Yale College, Oxford University, and Yale Law School. He's been awarded 50 honorary degrees from renowned institutions both at home and abroad. And the only sadness that we are pulling him away from the honorary degree lunch is that you don't get to see one of Guido's fantastic hats that he's garnered from all of these awards. He's in civilian form today. After graduating first in his class, Guido clerked for Justice Hugo Black of the United States Supreme Court. He joined this faculty shortly after that in 1959 and became the youngest ever full professor just 3 years later. You should just know, just to give you a sense of history, Guido has personally known every dean at this law school since 1916. During his tenure at dean, he transformed the law school into a beacon of legal education, what it is today, and he helped inaugurate a new era in its storied history. Professor Harold Coe, one of his successors, once remarked that Guido, quote, talked every day about humanity and excellent, that we can't be excellent at the cost of humanity, that is still the pervasive value of the school and what distinguishes it from everywhere else. Guido gave so much of himself to the law school, and I'll note that as his successor, that he remains as generous with his time and his insights and his talents as he was before. Prior to his appointment for the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit in 1994, Guido actually served as a Sterling Professor of Law here. His research is in the area of torts, and when he teaches torts, he teaches it that the law is a beating heart whose undercurrent is people. Law, Guido tells us, ultimately is about people. Generations of luminaries have the great fortune of remembering the law school as an intellectual home precisely because Guido has left such an indelible mark on this place. Regardless of whether you've had the opportunity to sit in on one of his classes, you have benefited and learned from the institution that he helped create. Even as the anchor of the storied history of this place, Guido also reminds us, though, that change is in the offing. The golden age of Yale Law School, he always says, is yet to come. He encouraged us to give our best to the world. The privileges that Yale Law School has bestowed on us demand that we do no less. Now, I could go on and on about his career of 60-plus years and what a privilege it is to have him here, but it is impossible to do him justice, so I'm just going to let Guido be Guido. And it is with immense pride that I introduce you all to a man who has always seen the best in this place and in all of us, a renowned scholar, a beloved teacher and mentor, and the greatest dean in this institution's history, Guido Calabresi.
It's a special joy to be graduating with you and to get my first Yale Law doctorate today as you get yours. 65 years after I got my LLB. I carried the flag that day. It seemed awfully heavy to me, and I admired the person whom I saw carrying it today. And in a way, I'm still carrying that flag. It's been a long commencement, and you've had many good talks, but I've been told to say a few words, and so I will. Many of you have heard these views of mine before, but perhaps they may bear saying again. First and foremost, you have a world of choices open to you to do something with your law degree. Whatever you do, do not settle for less than what is best for you. Find something that is fun and useful, both. Do not accept anything less on either count. What that is for you and for your life partner is to say, for you to decide that. I've been teaching for 68 years and judging for 29. I'd pay to do either. Find yourself something that means as much to you and to your right partner, and something that can make progress. Because remember, progress has been made. When I graduated, there was only one African American in my class and only 7 women. Progress has been made. If we hadn't made progress, what would make you think that you could make progress? And yet, there is so much still to be done. That is the beauty. Things have done, they don't go linearly, they go up and down, but you can choose something to do which is fun and useful and make progress. And when I say your life partner, find someone to share your life with, whom you love, of course, but also somebody whom you admire and respect. Whom you admire and respect. There is no greater turn-on than to be admired and respected by somebody you admire and respect. Second, though many of you, most all, believe you are outsiders, whether first-generation professional, minorities, immigrants, conservatives, something, you thought of yourself as outsider. You must realize it, that like it or not, you are now, by virtue of graduation from this school, part of the elite. And you will be so viewed even by those whose outsiderness you believe you share. That is both a burden and a duty. Don't ever forget where you came from, but understand that now you owe it to those who remain outsiders to bear a greater burden, because you are now insiders. Don't ever fall for not in my backyard when doing what you believe to be good. What you believe to be good must always be on your back, in your backyard. Otherwise, you impose a cost on others, and you create the kind of populism, whether it's from the right or from the left, that is always destructive and is usually there when an elite does something and does not bear the burden. Remember, no matter how clean you are, you'd better wash. The greatest people, the best people, can do something terrible. 3 of my great heroes, and perhaps yours, Franklin Roosevelt, Hugo Black, and Chief Justice Warren, were directly involved in one of the most dreadful set of actions in our country, Korematsu, and the placing of Americans of Japanese descent in concentration camps. It would be easy to say that they weren't good people, but that's a cop-out. They were in fact good people who did something terrible, because all of us are capable of that. So beware, beware, no matter how clean you are, watch out and do something good, and be careful not to do something bad. On the other hand, no matter how bad about yourself you feel, know that you will be given the chance to redeem yourself by doing something good. It may be dramatic, it may not. I tell the dramatic story of a cousin of my father's who, with his family, had to go into hiding in 1943 because he was of Jewish extraction and the Nazis were hunting for him. They went into a villa of his wife, who was of a Catholic family, with assumed names. And then the Nazis took over the villa as a headquarters. So there they were, hiding under assumed names, with the Germans in charge. The captain in charge of that group of Nazis was horrible. He drank, he stole, he beat up people. He was perfectly horrible. And then one day, my cousin's son, 4 years old, was playing in the backyard, and this Nazi captain called him by his assumed last name. The little boy forgot the name. He forgot his assumed name. And this captain went up to him and grabbed him on the shoulder and said, "That is not your name." And the little boy said, "No, that is not your name because you're Jewish." He said, "Yes," and ran in the house, and they expected to be taken away. But they were not. This dreadful man, in that situation, didn't turn them in at the risk of his life. Because if anybody else had heard him, any of the other soldiers who hated him, they would have turned him in and he was dead. Why did he do it? No one knows. My cousin tried to see if he had Jewish friends, Jewish ancestors. No. In that transcendental moment, he did something dramatically good that saved him. You may not have something that dramatic that is offered to you when you feel bad, or you may, because you are an elite. But whatever it is, while when you feel good, watch out that you may fall, and when you feel bad, know that you will have a chance to rescue yourself. And because, remember, and with this I will close, you are brilliant. You partake of excellence. You partake of excellence. But excellence without decency, humanity, caring, and love is evil. The worst in history were excellent. They were people of great skill. You can be excellent and loving of all who suffer. And if you are, you will make this place and all who taught you proud. You will give back to all those who brought you this far, your family and friends, and you will make this world, this suffering world, a truly better place. I love you all.
Our last graduate has crossed the stage. The last word has clearly been said. So I'll just close by noting to the families in the room, we have another lovely tradition in store for you, which is we all go back to the courtyard and faculty have a chance to say hello to you and say goodbye to their beloved students, and everyone gets a chance to say goodbye to one another. So it's the last chance the class will be together until you come back for reunions. Before we do that, though, I just want to note that as per tradition, Dean Mike Thompson will lead us out of the room. If the families could just stay and sit where they are as we process. And to the graduates of the class of 2023, go out, do us proud. Congratulations.